Good morning, it's 6 o'clock. On today's show, we're talking about a second lava alert in Iceland, putting homes under threat.
Plus, we'll also be joined by the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, about his plans to make us all safer, and we'll talk to a sub-post office master who spent 8 months in jail as that scandal rumbles on.
It's Monday, the 15th of January. The sun will rise again. Iceland's Prime Minister speaks out as a volcanic eruption sends lava snaking towards a fishing town. We'll be there live. Big freeze weather warnings for snow and ice across the UK. We'll tell you exactly where. After strikes on Houthis in Yemen, now the United States says it's shot down a cruise missile fired at a US ship in the Red Sea.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
We speak to Donald Trump as he prepares for a pivotal moment in the US election.
Tell me how do I feel? Tell me now, do I feel?
Blue Monday, we'll find out how to beat the blues with our resident doctor, Dr. Emeka. And Tottenham twice come from a goal down to draw 2-2 with Manchester United. Good morning. We begin with the volcanic eruption in Iceland that sent lava snaking towards a fishing town, engulfing homes in flames. The Icelandic Prime Minister says a dark day will be around us, but the sun will rise again as the government prepares to meet to work out how to home those who've been evacuated. Our science correspondent, Thomas Moore, reports from Iceland. The Prime Minister is expected to address MPs today on Friday's strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. Meanwhile, the US has said one of its fighter jets has shot down a missile fired at a US Navy destroyer in the Red Sea. Our political correspondent Mhari is with us now. Mhari, what exactly do you think the Prime Minister will tell MPs?
Morning, Gareth. So today is an opportunity, really, for MPs to grill the Prime Minister on that decision to take those strikes in Yemen that we saw at the end of last week. So it's partly about scrutiny and parliamentary scrutiny, but also we're expecting the Prime Minister, realistically, he's going to kind of set out exactly why the UK's response to what we've been seeing in the Red Sea was proportionate and fair. And essentially the government's argument is the Houthis were warned, and we know for a fact that a British naval ship was impacted by this. So essentially it's a way of demonstrating that the UK will follow through on its threats. But also, I mean, the Prime Minister's on a visit this morning. Before that, now the visit's actually about immigration, but realistically he's going to be grilled on this by journalists while he's there. And the other issue is we know that Grant Shapps is also giving a speech this morning, but also Defence Secretary Grant Shapps over the weekend was actually briefing MPs on this and updating them. He actually held a cross-party call with different MPs of both sides of the House about this as well. So it's a really, really key issue for Parliament today, and it'll be really fascinating to see exactly how tough the rhetoric is from the Prime Minister.
And we'll bring all our viewers those comments as when we get them, won't we, of course. Well, time now for a first look through the papers with Mhari this morning. Let's walk over to the column here. We're going to be looking through all the front pages. Obviously, a busy week with news, lots of focus on the situation with regards to the Post Office last week. And we're going to start with The Guardian, of course, because it's leading about a shortage of drugs in the NHS and focusing on the fact, hearing from one organisation which supports breast cancer patients, saying that patients struggling to get hold of any of the drugs they desperately need.
Yeah, it's actually really scary, this story. So it talks about the list of different drugs that actually are in a shortage in the UK, and they talk about how some of the contributing factors have been things like Brexit and how essentially the pound being weaker is making it harder for the NHS to be able to buy medicine. So really scary for patients. Now, also, Tories facing 1997-style wipeout. That's the headline on the Daily Telegraph as general election predictions are ramping up. Take a look at that there. A grumpy-looking Prime Minister. I mean, the election polls for the Conservative Party are pretty dire at the moment, Gareth. So it depends on the poll you look at, but it's normally between about 50 and 20, maybe sometimes even more than 20 points behind. So unless Rishi Sunak can turn this around within the next 8-10 months, this is really going to be potentially total wipeout for the Conservatives.
We'll follow that closely, of course. Well, let's move on now and look at the eye, because it's leading with the government's embattled Rwanda plan as people from the country are granted asylum in the UK. And it says their plans to continue despite claims that the country is safe. And that followed, of course, that legislation that the government's trying to push through that would effectively, to some degree, overrule the courts and rule that it is a safe country, despite the Supreme Court finding otherwise. And also, just in the top corner as well, worth noting there, Yemen strikes are not an escalation. Many more will follow. That's according to the Foreign Minister, Lord Cameron.
Yes, now on the front page of The Times, it also leads with Rwanda, but focusing on the mounting pressure for Sunak to toughen the bill. This is all about Kemi Badenoch, the Business Secretary, and also Lee Anderson, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, saying that they want the Prime Minister and the government to go more tough and more hard when it comes to the Rwanda bill.
Following that is the Metro. Stop the deaths, it says, with the boats crossed out there. It's the first known migrant crossing deaths in the year of 2024. We saw 5 deaths there. Sea temperatures around 9 degrees, bitterly cold. That cold weather that's gripping the UK, really affecting the migrant crossings there as well. And 5 migrants drowning in the Channel. That very saddening story that we saw over the weekend.
Heartbreaking story, Gareth. Now, finally, we've got the royal exclusive on the front page of the Daily Mail. They are claiming the late Queen Elizabeth wasn't happy with Harry and Meghan calling their daughter Lilibet. So interesting from the front page of the Daily Mail there as well.
Lovely job. Plenty more on the front papers coming up. Still to come on The Breakfast Show. We'll be hearing from a geophysicist in Iceland as homes go up in flames following a volcanic eruption. 48 years old and still at the top of his game, Ronnie O'Sullivan celebrates another Masters title.
Hello, everybody. A very good morning to you. How are you enjoying our New Look Breakfast Show here on Sky News? I've got 7 stories that you'll want to look forward to from 7 o'clock this morning. I've got a little list. Grant Shapps will be here. He's the Defence Secretary. He's going to be joining us for the government. And 3 words that got him to an awful lot of trouble with the Americans. What were they? Stay tuned and find out. Chris Bryant will be here. He's going to be talking about the National Health Service for the opposition this morning, but also we're going to be asking him about the honour for Alan Bates. Should Alan Bates versus the Post Office actually get a knighthood? Remember, he turned down an OBE previously. Why did he do that? Talking about that in more detail. A volcanologist will be joining us on the programme as well. Now, the team have been talking already this morning about what's been happening in Reykjavik, or Iceland more widely, so we'll be talking about that. The weather, talking about that as well. It's going to be minus 11 degrees Celsius in some parts of the UK.
Far too cold.
Well, you think that's cold? Let me take you to Iowa, minus 35 degrees Celsius, and that's where the caucuses is going to be ahead of the presidential election. The Mooch. Do you remember the Mooch?
Yes, 100%. Former press secretary for Donald Trump.
For only 10 days. He's going to be joining us from Davos, where it's also incredibly cold at the moment, but some of the world's richest men are there. Keeping them warm is their wealth. So we'll be talking to Wilfred about that. He's going to be joining us from 7 o'clock as well. And Blue Monday. You've talked about that already. How do you get through Blue Monday? Do you know where it originated from?
I do not.
I'm going to tell you from 7.
We'll find out all the answers at 7 with you. Thank you so much.
Then.
Plenty to come on The Breakfast Show. And, of course, those remarkable images from Iceland this morning were just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, let's begin our news review now. More from Kay shortly. But Mhari's here, also joined by the presenter, Ella Sillywood. Thank you both so much for taking a look through the papers. We've been diving beyond the front pages. What have we got, Mhari?
Yes, Gareth. So we're starting off with a piece in the Telegraph. Now, this is all very interesting about cabinet ministers who are potentially going to lose their seats at the next election, depending on how things play out. So they've got a list here of all the different cabinet ministers, and actually Jeremy Hunt is one of the top ones who is potentially at risk of losing his seat. We already know that lots of different MPs from both sides of the House are standing down at the next election, some maybe because they feel they might lose their seats. But it's fascinating to see it all, especially with the imaging that the Telegraph have got as well.
We devour this kind of gump, especially you as political correspondent. Elle, do you think people are as bothered as news junkies like we are about the upcoming election? Are you already in the election cycle vibe?
Good morning, everybody. You are very welcome to join us for our New Look breakfast show here on Sky News. On today's programme, we're talking about a second lava alert in Iceland, putting homes under threat.
We'll also be joined by Defence Secretary Grant Shapps about his plans to make us all safer.
Yeah.
Plus, should the wronged hero of the post office scandal, Alan Bates, accept an honour? We'll be joined by a sub-postmaster who spent 8 months behind bars.
All of that to come Monday, 15th of January. The sun will rise again. Iceland's Prime Minister speaks out as a volcano eruption sends lava snaking towards a fishing town where they're live.
Urgent talks by the government today as they try and work out how to house the people who've been evacuated from their homes.
Big freeze, weather warnings for snow and ice across the UK. We'll tell you where. After strikes on Houthis in Yemen, now the US says it shot down a cruise missile fired at a US ship in the Red Sea.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
We speak to Donald Trump as he prepares for a pivotal moment in the US election later on today.
Tell me how do I feel? Tell me now, do I feel?
And it's Blue Monday. We'll find out how to beat the blues with our resident doctor, Dr. Amika. Hello, everybody. We begin with the volcano eruption in Iceland that sent lava snaking towards a fishing town, engulfing homes in flames. The Prime Minister says it's a dark day, but the sun will rise again as the government prepares to meet to work out how to help those who have been evacuated from their homes. Thomas Moore has more from Iceland. OK, Thomas, tonight, thanks very much indeed. 9:20 on The Breakfast Show this morning. We will be speaking to a volcanologist to try to figure out exactly what is happening in Iceland. From molten lava to freezing temperatures here, flipping egg.
Yeah, and I always worry about talking about the cold weather because normally I'd associate it with a swear word as well. So let's see if we can get through this conversation without that.
First show, yeah.
But 5 to 6 degrees centigrade colder than normal,
Yeah.
and talks of 1 to 5 to 10 centimetres of snow as well.
Yeah, exactly, particularly in Scotland and the Lake District as well. It's very beautiful when it snows in the Lake District, but only for the first time, and then all the slush and you can't get around. We used to go to the Lake District when we were kids for our holidays, and my dad used to say, if you can see the mountains, it's just about to rain. If you can't see the mountains, it's already raining.
And it also, for rural communities, they don't get the gritters and the snowplows. You know, if you live in central London, it's all being done overnight.
Yeah.
You've got to wait for farmers who do a lot of that work for the councils
Sure.
to get out on the road. So there's talk of rural communities potentially being cut off as well with this weather wolf.
And this is all week.
This is all week. All the details of all the weather warnings on the app and on the website as well, so people can see what's going to be affected for themselves. Like we say, it's going to be a bitterly cold week as an Antarctic blast brings snow and ice to many parts of the UK and Ireland. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings for most parts of Great Britain, with temperatures expected to be up to 6 degrees lower than usual for this time of year. Today, weather warnings are in place for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Cold air from the Arctic will then bring freezing temperatures to places in northwest England and northern Wales. Frequent snow showers likely to cause travel disruption during Wednesday and Thursday. And now, today is apparently the most depressing day of the year, but here on Breakfast we want to try and turn your frown upside down.
Tell me how do I feel? Tell me now, do I feel?
Nothing like a bit of new order to start your week, and aptly their single Blue Monday. It's said to be the saddest day of the year today, with the weather coming back from the Christmas break and already failed New Year's resolutions among the things making people miserable. We'll be talking to our resident doctor at 8:45 about how to shake off those January blues.
Whoever wrote Turn Your Frown Upside Down is making me very sad this morning.
Big boss, Laura.
My goodness me. You know, when we were chatting just before 7 and I said I was going to let you know where Blue Monday comes from, got a clue?
No idea.
It's always the third Monday in January. And it was actually apparently a UK travel company that came up with it as a slogan to try and sell more holidays.
That sounds about right, doesn't it?
It does really, doesn't it?
Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Blue Monday.
Yeah.
But is it actually a thing? I mean, do you feel sadder today?
I don't think I feel sadder today than any other day in January.
You're
I mean,
never sad. You're always happy.
I'm never sad.
And then on Wednesday, you're going to celebrate your honeymoon, so
yeah,
you're
you've got plenty to look forward to.
I don't really have to worry about this Arctic blast, to be honest. But nonetheless, I think January is just a depressing month in general. And this is what I was saying to Gareth earlier. I just keep my Christmas tree up longer to try and maintain the Christmas cheer.
Fair enough.
Just that little bit longer and pretend that I'm still in December.
More on that to come, of course, a little bit later on, 7:15 thereabouts. We're going to be hearing from the Defence Secretary. He'll be joining us here on the programme to talk more about the situation in the Red Sea and other matters as well. And if you scan your QR code on your screen right now, you can listen to the latest episode of our Politics at Jack and Sam's podcast. This week, our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, and Politico's UK Editor, Jack Blanchard, look at foreign affairs. How will the crisis in the Red Sea shape up in Parliament, the return of the Rwanda migration bill, and what's in store in Davos as the World Economic Forum meets. You can subscribe to Politics at Jack and Sam's wherever you get your podcasts. Tom Cheshire is with us now. You've been doing some investigating, as you always do, for us, this time about the situation in the Middle East.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe it's actually been 100 days since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. We've been looking at two things, the damage and the displacement of people. So the damage, we know that northern Gaza has been reduced, huge swathe of it, to rubble recently. But our analysis has found that in the south, where people have been told to go for safety, actually the damage to buildings there has doubled since the 9th of November. And we can show you what that means in terms of the displacement. So this is just near Rafah, and this was taken on the 3rd of December in the south, on the border with Egypt, exactly. 3rd of December. If we cycle through these satellite imageries, you can see what you're going to start to see is that these images, you'll see more and more camps appearing. And then if we go through to the 30th of December, you can see, look at this just down here on the column wall. That didn't exist before. It's this huge tent city that has grown up. And it's become 1 million people living on that border with Rafah. It is a very tough life, especially with winter. We've been talking about the cold here. Winter approaching. So on the ground there is really tough. The Sky News journalists, it's really hard to operate there. But we've had a team in Gaza. They've been to this camp. They've been speaking to people, new arrivals who've been going there. They spoke to one man called Khalid. This is what he had to say.
OK, Tom, thanks very much indeed. Well, our data and forensics team have more on this story on our website. If you click the QR code on your screen, where is it? It's coming up in just a second. There it is. You can read more about the extent of the destruction in Gaza 100 days on from the start of the war. Thanks very much indeed, Tom. Thank you. More now, though, on the cold snap here in the UK, with snow and ice warnings extended. And the Republic of Ireland is also bracing for the freezing conditions. Let's get more, should we? Stephen Murphy is in Dublin for us. Hi, Stephen. You got your thermals on? Now, we were talking about Davos earlier, weren't we? And the very rich men who will be there. Wilfred has got a thought on that. And he'll take us through the rest of the day with that. Hi, Wilfred. Morning. Good morning, Kay. With pleasure to be with you this morning. Very, very hard to follow that. But in the world of business, all eyes, globally, all eyes do descend on Davos. As you said, it really kicks off in earnest tomorrow, people gathering from today. I think what is critical about this gathering, even though it's slightly stupidly in a remote and very expensive ski resort, is all of the biggest minds in economics and business from East and West come to Europe. And that is quite the opportunity for us to get a look ahead to what might happen in the economy this year, but also for British politicians to network with those key business leaders. OK, for now, thanks very much indeed. Thanks very much. Wilf chatting to us throughout the programme. Of course, Post Office.
Yes, Kay, we're talking about the Post Office because we know the inquiry is rumbling on, but also tomorrow the Business Committee is actually going to be grilling some people involved in the Post Office scandal. Alan Bates, for instance, as well. Alan Bates, should he have a knighthood?
I think many people will say yes. I really do think so, especially after Vanel's gave hers back.
Yeah, so he turned down an OBE. Should he now be Sir Alan, or perhaps even Lord Alan Bates? Let us know your thoughts. You can tweet us directly if you would like to, at Kay Burley. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking in more detail about the situation in Iceland and also what's happening in the Red Sea. All of that to come in just a moment. Do stay tuned to your New Look breakfast show here on Sky. Chris Bryant's here for Labour this morning. Hi, it's good to see you. How cold is it in Wales?
Well, I've only been here this morning, but it was very cold in Kingswood yesterday, I can assure you, and it was very cold walking across. Congratulations on the new show.
Thank you.
Everything changes, but still there's Kay.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
There's still points in the turning world, Kay. Haven't you done more hours on television than any other human being?
I have, yeah, more than 1 million minutes of live telly. So buckle up. Talk to me about what we should be doing about the Houthis. It's great. Politics at Jack and Sam.
Oh, it's the best politics podcast in the country.
I'll move my coffee out your way.
Beyond doubt. Yeah. Beyond doubt, Kay.
Yeah, what did you make of what Labour had to say?
I thought what Chris Bryant had to say was quite interesting. First of all, he was very cautious about unequivocally backing the government's position when it comes to those strikes in Yemen. I thought that was really interesting to show that actually he was saying we're not writing a blank cheque for the government, we're not writing a blank cheque for the US. So I think that was very, very interesting how cautious his language was. And second of all, it was fascinating that he was talking about the post office scandal and how emotionally upset he was. And he actually said it shamed us as a nation. And he actually said also that he doesn't want the blame to be kind of swung around between different political
Alan Bates
parties.
can have his knighthood, he said.
There you go. Fingers crossed.
Let's see. I'm sure there's another one in the drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
Some breaking news concerning the reports of plans to disrupt the London Stock Exchange. A man has been charged over the allegations to cause a public nuisance. Sean Middlesbrough from Liverpool will appear in court on Monday, today. He was one of 6 people arrested by police yesterday. 5 others, 3 women, 2 men, have been bailed pending further inquiries. Still to come on your New Look Breakfast show, Jack and Sam will be here to discuss their latest podcast as the PM prepares to defend his Rwanda bill once again. And another big awards night for Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, but just how many gongs did the biopic swing?